The smell hit me before the sunrise did. It wasn't the good kind of morning smell, not hay or wet dirt, or the way the air smells before a storm. It was chemical, sharp, sweet in the worst way, like someone poured antifreeze into the earth and left it there to rot. I remember running outside, half-dressed, boots, barely laced, heart pounding in my throat. My goats were stumbling. One fell by the trough like it forgot how legs work, and a chicken was flopping under the coop ramp, gasping for air. Then everything went quiet. Too quiet. That kind of silence that only comes when something living has stopped moving. I dropped to my knees, mud soaking through my jeans, and I knew right then this wasn't nature. This wasn't some random sickness. This was a message, deliberate, cruel, and personal. I called Doc Weller, the only vet around who'd drive 30 miles for a goat. He got there faster than I expected, which meant he'd seen this kind of thing before. After a few minutes of checking pulses and sniffing feed, he looked at me with that face vets get when they don't want to say what they're thinking. "This ain't viral," he said. "Whatever did this someone put it here?" Then he knelt by the fence, sifted the dirt through his fingers, and showed me these tiny white granules almost glittering under the morning light. "Lawn pesticide," he said. "Cheap stuff. Fast-acting. You've been feuding with anyone who's got a landscaping contract. I didn't have to think." Her name hit me before he even finished the sentence. Cynthia Hale, president of the Birch Hollow HOA. Cynthia had been after me since the day I moved in. Said my goat smelled. Said the rooster crowed too early. Said my property looked like a petting zoo disaster. She wore this pink sweater that looked like it belonged on a department store mannequin, and always smelled like she'd bathed in perfume instead of water. Every time she came by, she'd flash that little clipboard like it was a sheriff's badge, quoting bylaws that didn't even apply to me. My land predated the HOA by decades. I had proof stamped and signed by the county. But that didn't matter to her. Cynthia didn't run a neighborhood. She ran an empire of gossip and threats. 2 weeks before the poisoning, she'd left a final warning on my porch tucked neatly in a plastic sleeve like it was a court order. Livestock must be removed in accordance with subsection 4C. I laughed at it then. I wasn't laughing now. That night I couldn't sleep. The barn was too quiet, and every creak of wood sounded like another breath I might lose. My old dog Ranger lay by my feet, eyes tracking every sound. And in the corner of the barn, my favorite goat, Daisy, was barely breathing. She'd been with me since she was a kid, followed me everywhere, chewed the cuff off 3 pairs of jeans, once even jumped in my truck bed for a ride to town. Now she was barely holding on, and I could feel something boiling in me that wasn't sadness anymore. It was fury. The next morning, Cynthia strutted down my dirt lane like a queen on inspection. Big sunglasses, clipboard in hand, and that same little smirk. "Morning," she called. "We voted last night. You've got 48 hours to remove your livestock or face a citation." I didn't say a word, just held up the metal bucket I'd filled with the pesticide pellets I found along my fence. Her eyes flicked toward it, then away fast, too fast. "You really should supervise your animals better," she said. "Wouldn't want another accident." Something inside me clicked. Not broke, just clicked into place. That afternoon, I drove into town and bought 6 trail cameras, motion-activated, night vision weatherproof. I spent the evening setting them up around the fence line, every corner that mattered. And 3 nights later, I caught her. On camera. Clear as daylight, the HOA queen herself tossing handfuls of pellets over my fence like she was scattering birdseed. I stared at that footage until the sun came up. Then I called my cousin Hank, who runs a dairy farm about 10 miles east. "How much manure you got piled up?" I asked. He laughed. "Buddy, we're knee-deep in it." "Why?" I just said, "Time for some community beautification." The next few days I worked in silence. Welded some steel arms, rigged old irrigation parts to a water tank, tested the pressure valve till it sang. Ranger followed me everywhere, tail wagging like he knew justice was coming. When I finally tested the sprayer, it blasted so hard it coated the fence in a brown mist that smelled like every bad decision I'd ever made. But it worked. At 2:30 in the morning, I drove out with that tank hitched to my truck. No headlights, just the moon guiding me through the back roads. Birch Hollow's clubhouse sat on a hill, manicured lawns, fake stone planters, and a sign that read, "A Community of Excellence." Cynthia's Lexus was parked right out front, spotless as always. I parked behind the dumpster, turned the valve, aimed the nozzles, and took a deep breath. Then I pulled the lever. The roar was beautiful. A pressurized storm of justice sprang across the lot cars, sidewalk, the front doors, everything. It wasn't just a mess. It was art. When the tank emptied, I sat there grinning, heart-pounding air thick with the smell of revenge. Then I drove home quiet, like nothing happened. By sunrise, Birch Hollow was ground zero for the worst odor in county history. Local news showed footage of HOA members dry heaving into bushes. Cynthia Mascara running screaming orders at janitors with mops. Reporters called it a targeted manure assault. The sheriff, bless him, called it an agricultural incident and said there were no witnesses. Someone even edited the footage online with dramatic music, called it the Birch Hollow blowback. It went viral overnight. For a week, Cynthia lost her mind. She called emergency HOA meetings, printed pamphlets titled "The Rural Threat Among Us," and accused me of eco-terrorism. Her own board started turning on her. One by one, they stopped showing up to her rants. Then came the private meeting. She stormed out screaming, "I resign," and slammed the door so hard a picture frame fell. The new president, Patty, a sweet woman who actually grows tomatoes, came by 2 days later with a lemon pie. "We're sorry," she said. "The livestock rule's gone, and we're reviewing all landscaping contracts." Then fate did what justice couldn't. A cleanup crew found buried bins of pesticide behind the HOA clubhouse, half-empty bags with invoices tied to Cynthia's name. She'd literally poisoned her own reputation. The sheriff reopened the case. Cynthia disappeared from sight. Her lawn, once a green carpet, turned brown and patchy weeds pushing through like tiny rebellions. I thought it was over until a man in a suit knocked on my door. Said his name was Wallace Pierce, representing the HOA. Handed me a lawsuit, vandalism, defamation, property damage, $48,000 in emotional distress. I almost laughed. But I didn't. Instead, I called Hank's wife, Laura. She works at a local legal clinic. Smartest woman I know. Together, we built our counterattack vet reports, camera footage, receipts, witness statements, everything. When the day came, Cynthia showed up to court in a blazer that looked more like armor, clutching a binder thicker than her conscience. Her lawyer tried painting me as some manure-happy vigilante. Laura waited till he was done, then calmly slid the photo of Cynthia tossing pellets across the judge's desk. The courtroom went so quiet you could have heard a goat sneeze. The HOA's case was dismissed in minutes. Mine moved forward. Cynthia was charged with property damage, trespassing, and animal cruelty. The news headline the next morning read, "HOA president poisoned livestock, got buried in paperwork." A month later, everything settled. Cynthia paid restitution, lost her HOA voting rights, and vanished. The ranch came back to life. Daisy was healthy again. The neighbors started waving when they passed, even stopped by with gifts, fresh bread drawings from their kids. One guy even helped fix a broken gate. For the first time, Birch Hollow felt like a community, not a battlefield. The day the county mailed me the official letter confirming all charges were dropped, I built a small pen by the pasture with a wooden sign that read, "For those who endured." Under it, a brass plate with the names of the animals we lost. Not for revenge, for remembrance. A few weeks later, some documentary scout came asking if I'd sell the story rights. Said it had everything: justice, humor, heart, goats. I told him maybe someday. Some stories are better left in the dirt where they can grow into something real again. Now every evening I sit on the porch with Ranger at my feet, Daisy grazing by the fence and the sky stretching wide open above the hills. The smell of soil, hay, and a little bit of peace in the air. And I think revenge didn't fix the world, but it did remind me that when someone tries to poison what's yours, you don't have to shout to win. You just have to outlast them and let nature take care of the rest. If you've ever had a neighbor or an HOA cross the line, tell me what you would have done. Was I right to give them that natural makeover, or did I go too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious how you'd handle justice where the law won't.